my marriage is great now. Maybe it's going to fall apart. Suffering of change.
Richard Gere was born in Philadelphia in 1949, one of the post-war baby boomers. At college in Massachusetts, he studied philosophy. He was part of a generation coming to terms with new freedoms and finding the same problems: what to do with their lives.
You know, I had my serious involvement with politics when I was in college and Vietnam, in those years when everyone was really committed. And then it all kind of fell apart for all of us, and then I said, well, we're not going to be involved in this anymore. I had a kind of crisis that most people do in their early 20s, when just everything's not making sense. And this is the late 60s. There was a lot of literature that had become available then, whether it was Sufism, Dervish, Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, blah, 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 all this stuff was available. And I've spent late nights, all-night bookshops, reading books, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And it was Zen, actually, that attracted me originally. There was a cleanliness to the approach, kind of a Protestant approach to it, stylistically.
Buddhism stems from a man who lived 2,500 years ago in northern India, Siddhartha. Because it was believed that he gained insights into the essential nature of the human condition and taught them to others, he became known as the Enlightened One, the Buddha. And Zen is one of the many offshoots from these teachings. The practice of Zen Buddhism concentrates on disciplined meditation.
First step is starting to harness your mind, tame your mind. That was the last words of the Buddha that we've been told. Tame your mind. Not destroy your mind, tame it. And tame this unruliness. This is, you know, we're a very deep ocean. We live right on the surface where all the waves are. The deeper you go, obviously, the quieter it gets. And more radiant it gets. You know, it's just all there. Quiet, deep, empty, serene, complete, boundless. You know, those are the areas and they're not, those adjectives are, you know, they're just adjectives that are symbolic, but they're not the thing. That's essentially the voyage. Now, to get from all this surface activity that we usually live in, you know, you've got to avoid a lot of icebergs, things, thoughts, impressions, habituations. We're so habituated to get past that and find other levels of consciousness, that it's not about habituation in the sense that we're habituated to the negativities that we all are. My own experience was when I started meditating is that it's not that my mind was moving faster, more thoughts were coming, or more negative things were coming. It's just that I was aware of them for the first time. So there was a lot of stuff that came up, and a lot of it unhappy, that, you know, there were tears, there was unhappiness that was coming up. A lot of stuff came up. That's part of it. It's really kind of showing up for who you are, or really seeing yourself. Ultimately, there's no place to hide anyhow. You are who you are. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Anyone thinks. The work you do on yourself is the important stuff.
In 1982, the event that would set the course for his off-screen life happened while Richard Gere was traveling in India. He met the Dalai Lama, the spiritual and temporal leader of the Tibetan people, and Gere has followed the Tibetan approach to Buddhism ever since.
I was fortunate enough to meet the Dalai Lama in India, and that was the path that I've remained on. He didn't know what it was. He doesn't see movies. It's not of an interest to him. But like any skillful person, but especially a skillful teacher, he's going to use his time and energy wisely. And to know who someone is, to give them something, to help them in some way, this is not what they do. So he asked his brother in Tibetan, and he said, so what does he do? He says, oh, he's an actor. I said, oh, so he looked and said, so my brother tells me you're an actor. And I know my first thought, I'm talking 25 years ago, my first thought was, oh God, I don't want to talk about acting. I want to be enlightened. I want him to just go poof, zap. So I said, yes, I'm an actor. I said, thought about it a second. I said, oh. So tell me, when you're doing this acting and you're crying and you're laughing, these things, are you really doing them? And I gave this kind of actorish answer. I said, if it's more believable, the acting is much better, and tears, blah, blah. So he goes, yes, it's better if you're really doing it. And he looked at me very deep in the eyes, and he just started laughing hysterically at me. What he was doing was saying to me, don't you see the hallucination? Don't you see that even you, who are the magician in your work, making tears, making angry, making happy, making all these things, you think they're real. And it's the same with life.